Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And for this episode, let's talk about springtime, or more specifically, spawning time topwater baits. This is a great time of the year to throw topwater. However, you've got to think about the size of the strike zone, the distance that the fish are willing to go to strike a bait. And that, to me, is the biggest factor for choosing the right topwater for this time of year. So the first thing I'll say, when you're thinking about the strike zone, when the fish are on the bed, their strike zone is about as big as the actual bed is. Now that's different for smallmouth, of course, because smallmouth, they'll travel 20 feet to go attack a bait, even if they're on the bed. They're just a totally different animal. I remember going up to Lake Champlain, my rookie season, had never really fished for spawning smallmouth in a tournament situation before. And I remember I had a tough day down at Ticonderoga and ended up running up to like the Burlington area and made a bad cast with a Ned rig and ended up flying, like catching a knot and flying like 20 feet out there. I was like, figures. And as I'm picking it out, I look at the bed, fish is gone. I'm like, go figures. And then all of a sudden my line gets tight and I catch fish. So smallmouth are completely different. I know that story had nothing to do with this topic, but so thinking about largemouth on the bed, you want to use topwater baits that pretty much hover right above the fish. So you're fishing areas and you're casting to areas that likely have a spawning bass on them. Maybe you know that the fish is there, or maybe you don't. A lot of times I'm just blind casting and casting to like pockets and around like stumps and any type of cover that I think the fish are actually creating a bed on. And so the topwater baits that I'm going to be focusing on this time of year, when those fish are actually on the beds, really kind of stay in that strike zone longer. So let's go over some of my favorite topwaters for this time of year. The first one, so if you're on a lake that has, a lot of grass on it, so there's a lot of grass lines, a lot of places for those fish to spawn right on the edges of grass. Probably one of the best topwater baits for that situation is a hollow body frog. Okay, so a traditional walking style frog like this Z-Man Leapfrog's walking style topwater frog is really good. You can walk it right over their heads where you think the bed is, and it'll stay in the strike zone for a pretty long time. However, I kind of like to use another style of hollow body frog, and that is one that has a popping style mouth. So this is the pop-in version of the Leapfrogs. Has that little concave mouth just like a popper has. And what this does is it limits the forward motion. So you can actually work this bait walking it side to side, almost completely stationary if you do it correctly and you slap the right amount of slack in the line. And that allows me to, like, say I'm going to Okeechobee or the Kissimmee chain. Okay, those lakes full of grass, the fish are spawning in and around that grass, and essentially like a patch of reeds is a classic example of a perfect situation where those fish are going to spawn on the edges of those reeds, because fish like to spawn or make their beds where they've got some type of cover, vertical cover to their backs, whether that's a stump or reeds, anything where the fish don't have to protect 360 degrees of the bed is kind of a prime situation for them. So when I go to Okeechobee, I think reed patches. All right, and so a poppin' frog is perfect for casting to those likely areas where those fish are spawning right at the edge of the reeds, and just popping it, keeping it in that one position, just kind of walking it back and forth. I've caught so many giant bass doing that on Florida lakes and just grass lakes in general when the fish are spawning. And the poppin' frog, to me, is a little bit slightly better option than a traditional just walking frog. So that would be a really, really good choice if you're on a grass lake. And I'm going to show you another one that is also very good on grass lakes and is kind of a Florida staple. especially during the spring, and that is a prop bait. Okay, so this is the River to Sea prop bait. I forget what the name is, but this one, you know, has 2 props. They've got some that just have 1 prop. Let's see if I can find one. Yeah, like this baby torpedo here. Okay, that one just has the 1, but prop baits really excel around grass edges. Just like we're talking about the frog, the prop baits are definitely for the edges only, because you can see it's got treble hooks, and those treble hooks are going to get snagged on grass. So you don't want to cast it in grass, but on the edges of grass, if you have like a solid grass line or a straight line of reeds, and you think the fish are spawning there, a prop bait is really good. And essentially the way that you're gonna be fishing this is you're just gonna cast it out parallel with that grass edge, and you're just gonna kind of rip it forward, and just in the spring, I like shorter little rips. So it doesn't walk side to side like most topwater, you know, walking style baits, frogs, poppers, or just walking baits. It actually will pull just forward, but those little blades or those little props will spin and spit and sputter, and they create a very subtle, very unique topwater action. So you're just pulling it forward just a little bit, let the ripples kind of dissipate, and then rip it forward again. And this bait, even though you're moving it forward, it can stay in the strike zone for a very long time. And one of the cool things is, as this bait's kind of sitting still, those props kind of move back and forward very slightly. And the ones that have a little bit of shine to them, that are made of metal, like, you know, the Devil's Horse is a perfect example of a classic Florida, springtime topwater. They kind of shine a little bit. They kind of shimmer in the sunlight, and even when they're sitting still, that's, you know, they're still going to get bites. So this is a really good bait to just, you know, rip, let it hover over a likely spot where the fish are bedding, and then, you know, move it forward a little bit more. But this one is a very, very good, good bait. I like this River Sea one. You know, I'm not sponsored by River to Sea at all, but this one seems to get a lot of big fish, and it's got really heavy duty tackle on it, so you can use like braided line with it, and it works pretty good. So I like that one a lot, but you can't argue with the effectiveness of a good old Devil's Horse. That is just a classic in Florida and a lot of grass lakes. The next one, it kind of gets away from the whole like stay in one strike zone, and it also is not just solely a topwater bait. You can fish it on top, but you can also fish it just slightly below the surface. So let me show you that one. This is another one that is a great bait for vegetation. So anytime you're on a lake that has a lot of vegetation, this one right here, just a Texas rigged Z-Man turbo fatties. Okay, that sucker right there, swimming worm. All right, that is a really, really good choice this time of year for just covering water. So the reason why I'm adding this to the topwater list is, number one, you can fish this bait on the surface very, very quickly, where it's you know, just spitting and sputtering on the surface, kind of like a topwater toad type deal. But the thing that makes this a really good springtime bait is actually twofold. Number one, you're covering water on these large, shallow grass flats where the fish are spawning or getting ready to spawn, or they had just spawned. So you can get pre-spawn, post-spawn, and spawning fish. And the way that you get the spawning fish, which is the second reason why this is really good, is whenever you're covering water, you know, just fan casting this around, swimming it back, whether it's on the surface or just below the surface, when you get to a hole in the grass, a little pocket in the grass, you can pause this, you can stop the retrieve, drop this right down into that hole, and get spawning fish. So you can not only cover a lot of water, but you can also fish. You can drop this bait right into those likely areas where the fish are spawning. And I helped design this bait to where this tail has the perfect, you know, nice fall swimming action on a 3/16 ounce weight. So you know, this is a really, really good bait to just cover water, but also be able to drop it right in those beds. And I consider it top water for a lot of the ways that I'm going to be fishing it. And so turbo fatties or swimming worm, definitely one that you need to have tied on if you're on a grass lake. So the other ones, let's talk about some others. All right, so one of the best, absolute best baits during the spawn, because it can sit in the strike zone for a very long time. I've already kind of mentioned it, but this one right here, you know, if you're on a lake that has a lot of hard cover, you know, you can fish it on grass lakes too, but if it has a lot of hard cover like laydowns and random like stumps and docks and things like that, this bait right here, a good old popper, is a really, really good option, because this bait right here, again, just like that poppin' frog or the traditional hollow body frog, it can stay in the strike zone for a very, very long time. You can just pop it in place, walk it side to side, and it'll stay in one general area above those fish that are spawning for a long time. So that's kind of what we're looking for. And so a lot of situations when I'm faced with, you know, more, you know, rocky lakes that have a lot of laydowns and things like that, that's when I'm going to be using the popper to keep it right above those spawning fish. So I know that I was a little bit top heavy on the in favor of grass lakes in this video as far as the diversity of the baits that I like to throw. But honestly, you can throw, with the exception of the turbo fatties, which isn't as good on rocky and hard wood lakes. You know, the frog and the prop bait actually work pretty good up shallow. And you know, I'll throw in some honorable mentions that are more moving baits. So they are good for spawning fish, but it's for those spawning fish that are super aggressive. You know, like, you know, you don't have to like keep it above their heads. You're just trying to cover water, and when those fish are really aggressive, you know, you don't have to keep it right there. But one is a brand new bait. This one right here, Z-Man Hellraiser. Okay, so the Hellraiser is a really good one. It's kind of like, to me, it's like a mixture of a chatterbait, a buzzbait, and some type of walking bait. So the chatterbait blade on the back creates a lot of vibration on the back. It's good for just going down a bank, covering water, and it's something that the fish really haven't seen a lot of yet. So this is a really good one if you're like paralleling the bank or 45 degreeing it. Another one that I really like this time of year is a Whopper Popper style bait. So a Whopper Popper is really good because not only can you cover water with it, and it creates that like kind of buzzbait churning action, but you can stop it because it's buoyant. It's not like a buzzbait or the Hellraiser, which sinks. It actually will hover right above those fish. So you can cover water, and then just like the turbo fatties, when you come to a spot where you think, man, that looks like there should be a bed there, you can stop it right over it and get a bite that way. So those are just some other baits that I wanted to mention. But overall, those are my favorite topwater baits. This is a really good time of year to fish topwater baits. But the one key is you don't want to fish too fast over those fish, because a lot of times, because they're on the bed, their strike zone is about yay big. So anyways, guys, let me know what you think about these topwater options for springtime fishing. And if you guys have any questions, please drop a comment below. That's one of the ways that you can support the channel. Also keep in mind that you can support the channel by using the affiliate links in the description below, which bring you to 44tackle.com. That all the products that I talk about in this video, and also the tackle that I use with those baits that I talked about, you can use those links to purchase those products, and you get 10% off, and it helps support the channel. Also, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Those are all great ways to support Sonar Fishing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you out on the water. Take care.